Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to Smalltalk, the Smallville podcast here on the Ryan Cam channel. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This is the show where some co-hosts and I rewatch or watch, in my case, Smallville for the first time, and it's always so much fun. But first, I have to introduce my co-host. First up from 3D Movie Cinema, it is Jacob Collins. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on again. And it's been wonderful because I love Smallville and it's great to talk about Smallville.
And joining us as always from his channel, it is Matt Wyatt. Matt, good to see you again. Thank you.
It's good to see you guys again. I cannot wait to talk about Smallville episode 4 through 6, especially the 6th episode, which I cannot wait to go into that.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it was my favorite of the group that we watched to prepare for this. But I want to get to one bit of house cleaning. In the words of Matthew McConaughey when he was giving a commencement speech to the University of Texas, don't leave crumbs. And kind of left a bit of crumb, or at least I did, in last week's episode. First of all, thank you all so much for the feedback. It was really great. And second of all, in regards to, I believe it was Matt who talked about a scene from the pilot that was left on the cutting room floor. He found it and he sent it to me, and I watched it. And yeah, it definitely plays into more of why Jonathan Kent's not such a big fan of the Luthor family. It's not out of just, oh, they're rich, so whatever, like they're evil. But it's just the Luthors are genuinely kind of an untrustworthy family. And as we see throughout these couple of episodes, Lex is trying his hardest to really step away from the Luthor name while also kind of claiming it as his own. So it's strange to me that that part was left on the cutting room floor. Maybe it was a time thing. I don't know. I wasn't there. So it could be anything. But Matt, thank you so much for sending that to
Oh,
me.
absolutely. I mean, it was the only video that I can find, but there's another video with Jonathan and Clark having their screen time together. And it was at the very end of the episode when he's at the barn and you see Jonathan showing up and says, my father gave me that telescope when I was your age. And it's like, hey, you're all right. And then Clark was like, can you ask me that in 5 years? And he was like, okay. Then he walked down and then he walked up to his father and says, I'm glad that you and mom found me. And then Jonathan replied to him, said, we didn't find you, Clark. You found us. And I was like, why did they feel the need to cut that out? Because the only way that you're going to be able to watch the extended episode if you own a physical copy on DVD or the Blu-ray. And that's the only way you could be able to watch the extended scene of the pilot. I mean, I just wish they would have let that into the cutting room floor.
Yeah, again, we'll never know why it was cut out, I would imagine, because these episodes are 45 minutes long. They're an hour with commercials, so it's
And
just a matter of
It might be has something to do with the 1080p restoration, because when I watched on the Blu-ray on the featurette, it was only in a 480p standard definition and it wasn't remastered and wasn't in Blu-ray HD 1080p. That might be the reason why they didn't decide to like remastered it.
weird flex, but thank you so much for sending it to me. It really added a lot of context and really just deepened my love for the Jonathan Kent character in this show. I mean, we're going to sing his praises throughout, I can tell, but I feel like with all of that out of the way, let's dive into episode 4 of season 1 called X-Ray. Clark discovers that he has X-ray vision, but struggles to use it properly. Are we sure about the struggling part? But we'll talk about that in a second. Meanwhile, shapeshifter Tina Greer robs a bank impersonating Lex Luthor and then decides she wants to become Lana Lang permanently. So, yeah, Clark gets X-ray vision in this and immediately spies on the women's in the women's room.
he saw Lex first before he spied on the women's locker room, to be
Yeah,
fair.
it was both. Yeah, that was before, and especially because now we're starting to see Clark developing his X-ray vision. His powers are slowly manifesting because he hasn't manifest all of his abilities, and you will see more of it as the show progresses. But this was interesting to see him struggling, not controlling the flashes of his X-ray vision. And then the second time when he did it, when he was doing climbing the rope in the gym class, falls over and then loses control of his X-ray, and it just happens to be in the girls' locker room that Lana Lane is in. That was hilarious. The last scene, the last shot of Clark smirking, giving that little smile, seeing Lana being naked, that was sort of improvised because he was laughing because of what the director told him to do, and and the way he was describing it, it cracked him up. and that wasn't supposed. He was not supposed to get a smirk, but they left that shot in the episode. They thought it was great.
I guess I should have known that Lex wasn't robbing that bank when I first saw him, because I was like, there is no way a family as rich as the Luthers would have their money in this rinky-dink bank in the middle of Kansas. So I guess I should have known, but the effects work was pretty good, so it definitely fooled me. I'm sorry, Jacob, I stepped on your toes. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that like I really loved that like that I like the scene, but then there's two I had issue with it, but I also loved it. I love the fact that it was like I love that like Lex comes in there and then they're just like how he robs the bank and he's just like he robs the bank, he's running on down the street and I'm like the real Lex Luthor would have an expensive car and he would have got away. He would have just ran down the street with a gun waving his hands. I'm like no billionaire is gonna do that. That's just like illogical. Clark should know Lex would have gotten his car and drove away.
And also he's running away with a Smallville backpack. Like what would a billionaire need a freaking
he would
backpack?
have a briefcase.
He would have a briefcase and you would have a fast car to get away. He drives fast cars. Makes no sense.
Also, Lex would hire if Lex was wanted to rob the Smallville bank, he would hire thugs, or his security team impersonating thugs would go in there and rob it. He would not do it himself. He's not stupid. Also, I like how they look at. I don't know if this is like a fact because I don't go really to banks unless to get money out and stuff. But I don't know if like you go to a bank and then if your signature doesn't matches because now I mean I guess then that would work.
Then that proves that an identity theft that they would know, even if they don't like, would they check your like photo ID or something?
I just scribble stuff when I sign stuff at the bank. So
do I. I just scribble the cursive and like nobody cares.
Oh, wouldn't it be like, okay, Mr. Luthor, wouldn't it, like Ryan said, wouldn't it make more logical sense if he walked in there like, I would like to close my bank account and like, Mr. Luthor, you don't have one here. That would make more sense than
that would make a lot more sense. I mean, especially like, why would you need to close down your bank? You got like multiple bank accounts and you want to close one for some reason when the Luthor bank has been around for like 12 years in Smallville. But you started to notice that he acted a little bit shady than usual. Like that didn't sound like Lex. I mean, it kept us in the suspense in that episode.
The backpack kind of gave it away.
Yeah, the backpack gave it, especially him sprinting really fast and then like tosses Clark like it was nothing, like incredible strength.
Yeah, like I was thinking when I first saw this episode years ago, I was thinking, oh, Lex must be under mind control or something. But then I'm like, Lex would not just run down the street. He would get in a car and take away. Even if he was under mind control, he wouldn't be that stupid to run down the street. And then you realize, oh, it's a girl. So she just ran to her mom's shop, which I'm like, that's not very smart and logical because, you're running down the street. Even if you switch bodies, they're going to know, okay, the red backpack is not going to switch with you.
Yeah, but then we found out that was the girl, Tina Career, who can shapeshift, and her mother called her out and found out that she was using her abilities. She's known it all along. It's like, oh, no, not again. Like, she knew that she had powers. She's done it before.
Speaking of people not being smart and logical, let's talk about this journalist for a minute, because this dude clearly had some grapefruits on him to go be like, hey, Lex, I found your old files. I'd like 6 figures, please. Like, do you honestly believe that this man, Lex, would have just been like, oh, yeah, here's your money. Like, go to town. Like it was so cool. My favorite.
I think it's because the journalists who work for the Metropolis Inquisitor, which they like print tabloids, and then they're not like the legitimate journalists from the Daily Planet. He got every dirty files on him, and he's basically blackmailing him. And I think that later in the scene that he realized that he messed with the wrong billionaire. If you think you're going to come in and blackmail him and thinking he needs his daddy's protection because he's a spoiled rich brat, it just shows you that Lex is such a badass that he's not to be messed with. And we talked about that when we deemed it on Twitter.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that this is, and I was talking about this off air with you, Matt. This is really the beginning of the Lex Luthor, like the common image of Lex Luthor, the very smart and cunning businessman who just will stop at nothing, because not only does he he blackmails the journalist, but also is like, yeah, you work for me now, come with me, shows him the car and is like, this should not have happened. I should be dead. I need you to find out who this Clark Kent guy is.
So now he's going to get him on a payroll because now he's got dirt on him, and he can easily erase his identity like it's nothing. Can I fix you a drink? You walk out that door, I'm going to make you disappear. Oh, I was like, yeah, the shit's going to hit the fan for him.
Lionel,
like
if that shit would have happened with Lionel would have made him disappear. Like
he would have done it. He would have done it like no questions. But he is giving him like a warning, but he's got him by the balls.
I like how he's like, I don't need my daddy to do my business for me. Like he goes, like I can do this on my own. Because I guarantee you, if Lex did not know how to do that, Lex would have just called Lionel and said, "Look, this guy's harassing, wants 6 figures." Lionel would have had like in an hour had all that guy's business information, and he would have literally just made him disappear. But then,
absolutely.
But then Lex is like, no, you know what? He wants to play chess with me. I'm gonna play chess right back with him. And then he figures out like, oh, your brother was like a cop or something, and that's how he got my file and everything. And he goes, oh, you want to blackmail me? Okay, well, watch this. I took away your bank account. I took away your identity. I took away all this stuff. So guess what? He said, make you disappear. It's like, just
and he's like, now you work for me. And now when you see him shows the Porsche that he ran over Clark. He knows that there was no way no one would be able to rip the roof off of the car, and he shouldn't have even been alive. And that's when he's just trying to understand who Clark Kent is, and he's not being completely honest with them. So he wants to hire more Roger Nixon to spy on him and investigate him.
You were gonna say Morgan Edge, weren't you?
I know. I don't know why he said that. Like it's just a come tip of my tongue.
That's later on, dude. Later on.
I know. Later on. Ugh.
I would say this one thing that I will say is that I like that Roger Nixon was like literally trying just for a handout. He was like, oh, he goes like, he's just trying to blackmail. Your idea is the guy that just robbed the bank. Your idea is to blackmail him because even though he didn't really rob the bank, your idea is to blackmail a billionaire that could probably find dirt on you in like an hour. Especially his father is known to do shit like that to make people disappear. And you're going to still blackmail the son of a billionaire that has that type of power? I'm like, is that really smart on your end?
And you know what reminds me? It definitely reminds me of the Dark Knight scene when this one guy, Norman Reedus, who's trying to blackmail Bruce Wayne because he finds his identity and he's trying to blackmail him. That kind of reminded me of that with Lucius Fox. It just got right back at him in a total 180 on him.
It'd be funny if Lex says, "I blow up a hospital" if you walk out that door.
In the words of Tony Stark,
that was the plan. Not a great plan.
This is a very effects-heavy episode, and it's 2001, so I'm kind of lenient, but some of the effects in this, I was like,
Jesus!
Yeah, that's not great. But keep in mind, 2001, technology is not where it is now, so I feel like that should be graded on a slight bit of a curve. But even still, I was just sitting there like, could have done with another pass, but again, I'm the first time viewer, so I guess I'm a little more stringent with that.
I think it's because that us as fans who have followed the show for a long time, when we watched it years ago, it before like HD TV existed, it worked well back in the day when it was just regular TV. And now when you watch it in a 1080p HD, the effects will look a little bit dated in the first season. But once you get later after season 1, the budget and the effects gets much more improvement.
I will say, though, I feel like the creators of the show must have watched at least like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because there's definitely some very much Invasion of the Body Snatchers vibes going on here, where you don't know exactly who all is in this. And I mean, let's talk about Tina Greer for a second, because I feel like that's a good place to parlay into talking about the villain of this episode.
By the way, she's an amazing actress. The girl who plays her, I think,
Lily Kaplan.
Lily Kaplan.
Oh no, Lizzie. It's Lizzie Kaplan. Yeah, Lizzie
Kaplan. Yes.
Yeah, amazing actress. Mean Girls, Masters of Sex. She's also in Hot Tub Time Machine. And
yep, she was in that. And like she was in the interview with Seth Rogen and James Franco. I thought she was a great actress.
I just thought in this one she's just, to me, she's too much like Jennifer Jason Leigh in Single White Female.
Yeah, she was a little bit more like, came from like a background actress, and then she does guest stars on shows every now and then, but then she got a big hit from the movie Mean Girls.
Yeah, I only really know her from Cloverfield. She played Marlena, I believe, one of the girlfriends of one of the main actors in there. That's where I recognized her from. But yeah, she's genuinely pretty creepy in this one too, especially the part where she basically wants to become Lana and like sticks her into an entire like casket or like a crypt. And I'm just sitting there like, yo, sticking this poor girl in a crypt, that's some very nice trauma right there.
When she was strangling her in the graveyard for 4 seconds, and like, dude, you have super strength and you couldn't snap her neck if you wanted to murder Lana and then dispose the body in that crate.
Also, Ryan, did you notice that whenever she posed that pretended to be Lana when he's literally using his X-ray vision, and he's trying to, and then Lana walks up and everything. Did you notice? Like, did you think that was Lana really, or did you suspect that was Tina when you were watching it? Because when I first saw it, I thought that was Lana 100%. Like, oh,
Yeah,
this is another boring Lana scene of Clark and Lana.
yeah, because
And
when you thought that she was when she was going up to Clark's barn, and that was we all thought was Lana, and for me, I actually thought it was Lana the whole time, and until the reveal after they were done kissing and Tina Guerrero revealed herself, which that was like, whoa, damn, she really went there. I think the kissing part was a little bit of a red flag when you suspect like that can't be Lana, that can't be her.
especially because Lana was trying to have different conversations with Clark. Like Lana was literally, like, if Lana went there, she would be talking to Clark about something completely different, not Tina Greer.
Absolutely, and also like, why is everybody going up to his barn? He has no privacy on that barn. Everybody just waltz right in, like out of
He wanted
nowhere.
to look at a nudie magazine. His dad or somebody, Lex or somebody, walk in on him.
Exactly.
Like, Clark, whoa,
What if
Clark.
it was something like, whoa, dude, no.
Lex is like, whoa,
Fortress.
Clark, man, put it away. Put your Fortress of Solitude away.
Fortress of Solitude, my ass. But yeah, that whole scene where like it's Tina but Lana in disguise and they kiss. When I first saw it, I was like, wow, this relationship escalated quickly. But then my brain was like, wait a minute. And then the reveal happened. I'm like, yeah, it fooled me for like a hot second. And then I was like, this is probably Tina. And sure enough, it was. Um, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about Whitney still. He's very much like the biggest question mark of this entire show to me. There are some moments where I like him, and other times I'm like, yeah, I can't wait till you're written out, my man.
I felt the same way too, but I believe that once you get into the second half of the season, he does have a little bit of emotional arc to it without spoiling anything. I think you will start to like him a little bit more, that they humanize the character and not just some jock boyfriend that Lana dates.
He basically is Flash Thompson from Spider-Man, essentially, but like, because that's literally, this is kind of, if you think about it, this is Spider-Man in a way. It's like Superman is Clark is Peter Parker, and Lex Luthor is Harry Osborn, and Norman Osborn is Lionel Luthor, and you got.
I bet that they kind of got that it was influence from Smallville, because Spider-Man, the original one, came out in 2002, a year after season 1. So I think that it was had a little bit of influence, even if it was done in the comic books before.
Well, the producers said in an open interview, they said they got the idea for the Lex and Lionel Luthor relationship from Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn in the comics.
Oh, and I knew it. Because Lionel Luthor was not like was not made as a character in comics or animations or movies before. I mean, Lex may have mentioned that he had a father, but they never even mentioned the name. They never really made him out to be a character.
But I do like that they continued on this now.
Absolutely.
That like now, if you watch like even like Batman v Superman, Lex Luthor has like the abusive father, like, which is a nod to Smallville, because because Lex. And also, if you look at Supergirl, like Lex Luthor's dad on there is named Lionel Luthor, and I'm like, oh, I wonder why. And so it's like, and it's like, which I will say, I like that post Smallville. I think that became the new continuity. Just like if you watch Batman animated series, Mr. Freeze's origins was completely different, but then after Batman the animated series, they changed it to, he's a guy who's a poetic character who wants to save his wife. I mean, I like when if you do the shows, if you do a good enough job and change something and make it better, then that means they will follow that, will continue on, rather than if you just try to do the bare minimum.
Exactly. Like sometimes it doesn't always translate well to live action if it doesn't fit the tone and doesn't fit the story. Because if you want to change something that can work and be more consistent, then it's forgiven, even if it's not like what it was from the past iterations from movies, animations, or comic books.
Yeah. I will say that what I liked about this, continue with Tina, is I did like that, she pretended to be like Clark and then tried to run the mom down in the freaking truck because she saw the money. She saw the money. And I was like, wow. She saw the money, and then the mom just like she killed her mom by accident. She's like, come on, mom,
Yeah, it was an accident. Like she didn't really did it on purpose until at the last minute when she was calling 911 and she looked at the shattered mirror. She's realizing now she can get away with anything. She can turn into anyone she wants and she can get away with murder. She could and become somebody else entirely.
I think we can move on to the next episode unless one of you want to talk about one more thing or miss anything.
I do want to say one more thing. There's something that made me there's something I got a few notes that I took that I wanted to say one thing about. It is I liked there is a scene. This is literally we did not cover. This was something that on the actual the Talkville that they did. They said it made them laugh was whenever Pete sees the dead body, he goes,
"Oh yeah,
damn, who's that?"
Who's that?
Yeah, and that's becoming the most quotable like on the Talkville podcast. Now they made them. I've heard that they made a merch of the shirt that says "Damn, what's that?"
Oh,
it's been an inside joke.
There's one thing I really want to say. I forgot. I can't believe I forgot this. But there's a thing where Lex says, "Because Clark, I promise you, I'm not a criminal mastermind." And he goes, "I know, criminal mastermind would have worn a mask." That is actually the line Lex Luthor says, like in Superman the movie. I'm Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mastermind in the world.
I'm the greatest masters of my time.
You know,
a little bit of a wink and nod to the Donner Superman fans out there with Jane Hackman's Lex Luthor.
And also, they said that actually was when he said that line when Tom smiles at Michael Rosenbaum. They both laughed, but that's actually they broke character because that just made them both laugh, and they were
they totally broke character. You can tell that they were just laughing. They kept that scene because it worked so well. It was natural. Oh yeah, and there's one that Tom mentioned. By the time that fight ended between him and Tina Guerrero, when he was trying to break Lana out, that behind the scenes, like they only had 45 minutes until in the morning, and they had to get that shot as much as he can for him to punch that crate, the top of that lid, and the special effects. And Tom Welling was so nervous to punch that he feels like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to break my hand or I don't know if it's going to break easily. He's like, I'm not doing it. And he's like, and the special effects like, oh yeah, you're going to tell me how to do my job. And then he just demonstrates it. He demonstrates it and he hits it. And he's like, ah. and he was never shown again on set ever after that. He just realized that he just completely embarrassed himself. Hey, it's like say customers are always right.
Jacob, what would you rate this?
Well, I really like this episode. So I would say an 8 out of 10 because, that is like, I would say 9, but then I feel like to me, the villain was okay, and the Whitney stuff was okay, but I really like the idea of Lex and stuff. I might say 9 out of 10 because I really enjoyed this episode. 9 out of 10 would be fair to me because it's a really good episode. I like how it shows you that Lex is going down that journey where he's like, I don't need my father to do something. And like the way he threatens that reporter and the way he takes away his bank account too, like an asshole. And everything, even with there's some issues I had with the episode, I think it is a fantastic episode, and I would absolutely rewatch anytime I do a Smallville rewatch. Matt, what about you?
For me, it was a solid episode. I mean, I didn't really love it as much. I felt like the Tina Guerrero plot thing was kind of jarring to me. I didn't really care about it. To me, I didn't care. I mean, yeah, it was good performances, and I love Lizzie Kaplan as an actress, but I just thought like it was all right. But the highlights for me was Clark manifesting his X-ray vision and learning how to control it. I love the Lex scene with him and the reporter was fantastic. And there was another subplot with Lana finding out about her mother that she wanted to quit cheerleading and she wanted to leave Smallville and explore the world. And then on her aunt Nell just kept that truth from her, and finding out about it was pretty decent. So I'm going to give this thing a 7 out of 10 Shield.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I'm going to go with 7 on this one. Pretty solid. Definite step down from the pilot, which is still my favorite. Still not bad, but definitely like stuff I wasn't a big fan of. But now let's get into my least favorite of the episodes that I've watched so far. Season 1, episode 5, called Cool. This is a rather chilling episode. Obnoxious athlete Sean
This episode
Kelvin
leaves me cold.
All right, and chill.
You're not sending me to the cooler. Stay cool, bird boy. Cool party.
Gentlemen, can I please read the synopsis?
Sorry, go on.
Obnoxious athlete Sean Kelvin drowns in an icy meteor rock-infested lake because kryptonite just exists everywhere in this poor town. and is resurrected with an intense need for body heat. He freezes his old girlfriend to death and sets his sights on Chloe. So, yeah.
If you piss on kryptonite, you'll become like made of piss, and then you'll be like piss man, because that's how kryptonite works. People grab meteorites. If they swallow it, you'll just become like you'll become Absorbus. If you piss on it, you'll become pisser. If you go into an ice water, or if you go into a hot bath, you'll become the heat miser for whatever reason.
It's an older code, sir, but it checks out.
That should be your pitch for another Freak of the Week episode. If the Smallville was still running, that should be another pitch.
The pisser.
For real.
The pisser man.
It's I mean, imagine this, okay? All right, if you just imagine he falls in cold like freaking ice, and it's like, oh my god, what a Mr. Freeze ripoff, okay? Whoa, you're so clever, Smallville. It feels like a filler episode too. It feels like they had a really good. They're like, you were going really strong. Even the Bug Boy, I was like, yeah, it was still fun. This one, I'm like watching going, I don't give a shit. I do not give a shit.
Yeah, it was stupid, and especially when
the beef plot.
How he was able to get those powers was so ridiculous and forced. Especially when Whitney and the jocks were going to toss the football, and Whitney just tosses the football, and it goes all the way across the freaking frozen lake. Like he wasn't even trying to throw it that far. He only did the toss, and it just somehow it ended up that far in him. And then he just goes after the freaking football, and then it cracks the ice, and he falls into it, and just freezes to death and got powers.
And no one says nothing either. No one says nothing. Everybody's like, where's Sean at? I just threw a fucking football to him. Obviously, I should go and check to see. Because literally, if me and my brother are outside playing football and I throw a football to him, I don't just walk away.
Exactly. And no one cared. No one cared. They didn't care. It's like, oh yeah, where is he? Oh no, he's fine. I was like, he disappeared on you. Or like, shouldn't you be concerned where the hell he is?
The ice somewhere. So I'm probably just putting a junk in the ice or something. Who knows? It's Sean.
It's Sean. Who cares?
This complete and total Melvin Sean just walks across this frozen lake. And I live in Florida, where winter is my favorite day of the year. So I don't know how ice works. But walking across this frozen lake, I was sitting there like, don't be surprised if you fall in. And sure enough, he falls in. And in the words of one of our wisest sages, Ron White,
You can't fix stupid.
I feel like there was just like this frozen lake needed a sign. Like in the words of comedian John Crist, I feel like that needs a sign.
And also, because I live in Minnesota, where like I know you live in Florida, and because you don't have winter where you live, but for me, I live in Minnesota, where it's my least favorite season of the year because we get the worst winter storms out there. And near the lake that I was in, they always have a sign called thin ice. They should always have a sign up so you don't go across the freaking lake and ended up drowning and like crumbling and shit. Like, they would always have a sign up.
Yeah, they should have. Caution, Smallville. You may become Meteor Freak of the Week if you stay here. Just saying.
That should be a new sign. Not Meteor Capital of the World, Meteor Freak Capital of the World.
If you piss on a meteorite, you're gonna become pisser. Just saying. If you eat a meteorite, you're probably gonna have some kind of weird effect on you. Just saying. Be careful.
It's possible.
Imagine if you use a meteorite to for a freaking ice bath. Like literally, by the way, the last episode we were not the one before, but the one we were talking about. That guy, the coach, uses it.
Oh yeah, the hothead episode.
And he becomes fire. I'm like, how the fuck does that work? Okay, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like,
he was in the sweat box. He had a sweat box that had a charcoal of kryptonite.
It's not like he was on fire. Like the Human Torch from Fantastic Four had more logic than that scene.
He can only manipulate the fire. He can only manipulate it, kind of like Pyro from the X-Men.
Steam Man? Wouldn't it make him the steamer?
That would make a lot more sense, especially when he's in a sweat box. Like he wasn't surrounded by fire technically; he was in a sweat box with charcoal with kryptonite.
I'm the steamer.
I'm the steamer. I guess that the writers just didn't care and thought it would be stupid. They thought the fire would be more dramatic than that.
But anyway, continue, Ryan. Sorry.
Well, I guess my point is that we see this villain quite a bit in this episode, and like Jacob, we were talking about back and forth how he was just like he's basically the off-brand, non-union, legally distinct Mr. Freeze at this point, even down to some of the puns. Like, he even kind of looks like him, and I'm just like, well, Schwarzenegger played with some gusto. This dude just comes across as a real creep. Like, he's just calling up old girlfriends and basically taking them for their heat, which I'm sure is commentary of some kind. Is like at that point, even God's going, "Do you get it?" But at the same time, I'm just sitting there like, why? And Chloe, poor Chloe, like she was just like, Chloe, you're smarter than this. You do realize this dude is freezing.
Isn't she like the Professor Xavier of the show? Like she's supposed to be like the smart and witty reporter. Wouldn't you think about
weird?
Yeah.
Like he literally blows her off to get with a girl to get her heat, and then she literally is like, "Well, it's not meant to be." And then he calls her later, and then she's willing to meet him. I'm like, Chloe.
She forgave him right away. Like that made no sense, especially the last thing that you were mentioning, that he looks so blue and no one questions it. Like, dude, you look so blue and you look like you're freezing like hell. Like no one questioned it. They're like, yeah, whatever. They didn't care.
Yeah, it was so weird, and it just I feel like it was meant to be scary, but it just kind of was laughable to me how he just sucks the body heat out of this one girl when she steps out of the shower and she falls over and just you hear.
And
like,
also he walks right into the house and like just walked right in while she's showering, listening to Jimmy
now
Eat
she's
World.
A popsicle.
Yeah, and she's listening to Jimmy Eat World song called Top of the World. Top of the World. Yeah, that's another great highlight of that soundtrack.
I will say I did like the scene when he grabs the shower and it turns into ice. I did like that. I thought that effect looked cool. And then when he grabs her and she turns into like a statue, like she's dead by then he drops her. I thought that was cool. But at the same time, I'm like, if this was a better villain, then that would have made it a better story.
And also, yeah, if you're bringing Freaks of the Week, I mean, at least make them at least likable and someone that we can understand where they're coming from, and not just simply start off being bad, just like that out of the blue. Not very likable characters when they bring in Freak of the Week.
Like it would have made more sense if like we didn't see Sean's backstory. If we just seen like, oh, they're like Chloe. Chloe's at the lake and then she hears somebody scream and then she runs out in the woods and she sees a frozen dead chick. That would have been creepier. And then
that she tries to save him from drowning and freezing to death, and she couldn't do it, and he ends up dead. That would have add more better like impact to the story instead of just like, oops.
I will say though, Ryan, what did you think about the other stuff about the Lex Luthor side of things between Jonathan?
I was actually just going to get to that, and I was going to parlay that in saying that it's a shame that the villain was so lame, because there's genuinely some really good stuff here. Like we were talking about earlier, the Jonathan Kent and his relationship with the Luthers and how he just straight up doesn't like them. It's not from a place of, oh, they're rich, so screw them. But it's just, it comes from a place where Jonathan Kent would rather go broke than owe a Luthor any money. At first, I was like, Jonathan, my brother in Christ, this man is literally offering you free money. Take the hint. But he just says no. And his reasoning is honestly kind of sound. There's wisdom to it. But at the same time, it's so complex because, like we were talking about, Lex Luthor is someone who wants to step away from the Luthor name, but he knows that it's pretty much all he has. So he's just trying to use the Luthor name to his best of good as he possibly can, but there's still just a whole swath of people who are just like, I don't trust you as far as I can throw you, and you look about 180, I cannot throw that.
Also, like Jonathan's fears is that, okay, look, he knows you are your father's son, and one day you might become like your father, and I don't want to give you full control over my farm, because he says it's more of like an investment. He says that this is not just a handout, it's like an investment. And he thinks that, and so he would rather, he has his pride. Jonathan's like, look, I can make a deal with Lex, and which Clark wants him to. Clark really wants him, like, look, Dad, he's such a good guy. But then he's like, you don't know him. I know his father. His father is an evil, evil man. And he says, he goes, how do you think that Lex is going to grow up? Probably like, and Jonathan kind of knows, like, okay, this child probably grew up in that household. If you're basically a monster and you're raising a little kid, that little kid is probably going to turn into a monster. And so basically he's like, just because they look good on the outside, Lex has some kind of agenda behind it. There's just no way that Lex is just being a good, kind citizen. Even though that, I believe this is intention to be a good, kind citizen. But, I understand where he's coming from. It's like, I would rather not. I like at the end how he tells Lon, like when Lex approaches him, it's like, you went to the bank, got a loan. Why would you put your family in jeopardy? And he's just like, because what was it? Do you remember, Matt, what he said to?
He was wondering, what's your angle and all this? What do you get out of all of it? I'm not exactly, if I remember correctly, what he said to him.
He
I
has
can't
his
remember.
integrities. He said, "I have my integrity."
Oh yeah, I have my integrity. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was also a line where Jonathan Kent said, "With a bank, I know where I stand."
Oh
So,
yeah, that part. That's the one.
so yeah,
Yeah.
it's so complex with a show like this. I'm so impressed because it's not a clear Lex is the villain, we must boo him. It's like, no, he comes from a shady family, but it's clear that because of the wreck, he is trying, maybe in vain, and we all know how his story ends, unfortunately, just in vain to kind of step a toe out from beyond the Luther name. And ultimately it's in vain because, well, we'll talk about that in the Hourglass episode, because quite honestly it's explored a lot better in that one. But it's all about the Luther name comes with a price.
I do like that Lex Luthor. There's some things I do like about this. So even though I don't like the villain, I do like that Lex offers, like he offers the cancel. I like that aspect that he's trying to be humble. I like that he's playing matchmaker with Lana. He's trying to do. It feels like he's trying to do everything for the Kents. Like he's trying to set Clark up with a date with Lana. He's trying to give Jonathan and Martha alone. It's like it's almost like he's trying to be in their good graces. And I like that he literally tries to set like he tells Lana. The only thing is I don't like what he says though. Like he does try to set Clark up by saying like, "Hey, I love when he says you're like the younger brother I never had." I love that because he does see Clark like a brother. I do like that, but then I'm like, he still oversteps his bounds by telling Lana, you should not be with the quarterback," and I'm like, that's none of your fucking business, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, who are you to pry in my life like that? Like,
like,
who are
Lana
you to
should've
tell
said-
me who I go out with? And he just sits there
He
while
sits
Whitney came in and tried to like
over there.
reschedule their
Eavesdropping.
date while he was doing his own little
He's
pay-per-view
gonna-
fight. And he just like, see, Lana, see? He's eavesdropping. Like,
He's
eavesdrop
literally
much?
right there next table, so eavesdropping. I'm like,
That's a
what
little
are you
creep.
doing?
Like, dude, you're being friends with a 15-year-old kids from high school. It's over a 23-year-old, whatever Lex's age is. He's like in his 20s and he's being friends with 15-year-olds.
He's like, he says, I really want to be friends with, these kids. Like, it's kind of creepy, but I'd say that I understand. It's like, he never had this like friendship. And I understand why.
Yeah, he never really had a real friendship, but we got to admit that we got to turn our brains off and suspend our disbeliefs because they know how to sell this scene with the friendship between the two of them.
I also like that Jonathan, even though he doesn't want to take long, he was willing to listen to Lex.
Oh,
Even
right,
though
right.
Lex kind of tricked him. Lex did trick him. I said, I'm doing a whole town and it's just them there.
But it was funny when Clark was saying, "Hey, wait, I got a date with Lana." Like, who set that up? Lex. And he's like, Jonathan's like, "Yeah, I'm proven right. Guess he's got everything planned out this evening for all of us."
I do like the way that Sean did die in the end episode, where Sean basically, like, he was born, he became a monster. He was born a monster in the lake, and he died in a lake.
Very poetic end for that character.
Yeah.
I mean, Clark technically kind of killed him a little bit if you think about it, even though he pushed him like 100 feet in the air, diving into the pond, and then froze to death and died in the lake.
Also, here's a fun fact. Tom Welling forgot in Talkville, it says he forgot his lines, and they were written on when they were in the limo looking at the playing cards. It literally he had to see his lines there because like Lana held his lines up right there where he could see because he forgot his lines. So they wrote the line on the card so he could read the card and see.
Like, did he got that word wrong? Said 6 of heart instead of 3 of hearts.
Yeah, it's the Marlon Brando from The Godfather treatment. Because Marlon Brando didn't learn his lines, so cue cards were strategically placed all over the office to where he could look and just be like, "I'll make him an offer he can't refuse." So kind of,
yeah, it's kind of like you're doing a commercial or a news anchor where you have to read the teleprompter or you have to read the big cards in front of you behind the camera.
Also, they find out about Sean as they watch the TV and they find out. That's how they found. They literally turned on the TV in the limo, like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like that to me.
Yeah,
like,
Clark just sees the news in the limo that the girl died and froze to death, and he put it together and found out that he's going out with Chloe. And the one thing that really bothered me was when Chloe was yelling out Clark's name, even though he's not near the pool with her, and they're like, Clark. And it's like, how do you know he's going to show up?
You don't know this. I'm like, it's
Like,
like
how
this
do
is
you
like
know?
spinning
I
disbelief.
feel like she,
bro.
I feel like she's suspecting that when she gets in danger, Clark suddenly shows up out of the blue, very
Just because he
convenient.
saved you from a fire doesn't make he's gonna save you from Iceman.
Exactly. And then he punches the ice right in front of her, and he did not see. She did not see
Shouldn't
him.
his hands be broken?
Yeah, shoot your hands, but you just fist down the ice like it was nothing, and
Also,
you toss Sean right across the pool like it was nothing. Like, how did you
also,
do that?
also Ryan. Sean cuts. This is also a dislike I had with the episode. Sean cutting power to the mansion and to cutting power to that power plant. Wouldn't that basically? I don't know if you don't know about electricity, but electricity heats up when you tend to use it. So if you consume a lot of power, it uses heat. So a guy who's made of ice who uses electricity, wouldn't that melt him or kill him at least? Because it's ice and heat. I'm just saying he
Maybe
does that. He's like, I'm like, there's no way that that's going to heal him. That is going to
he'll
kill
probably
him.
like, I'm melting, I'm melting.
It should be like ice.
To quote one of the Mythbusters, Adam Savage, I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Also, he freezes himself almost to death in a way.
Yeah, he practically killed himself.
You know, but that's why I really hated this episode. I mean, I like the Lex stuff. The Lex stuff is what I really liked. But I liked how Lex is trying to get in everything. The only good thing about this was Lex's storyline. Everybody else in the episode was just like Chloe. They made Chloe so dumb in this episode, and like Chloe's usually the smartest character in the show.
Yeah, they dumbed her down.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up before we move on to our final episode, the whole thing with Clark and Lana going on this about a millionaire quotes date to the Radiohead concert. Isn't Lana technically cheating on Whitney? Like, really think about this for a minute. Now, I'm not a huge Whitney fan at the moment, but they are still in a very committed relationship as far as I can tell. So I like the dude just wanted to watch, like, I'll just say it, November 2001, like Survivor Series 01, and like with his friends. I'm like, all right, I don't see a problem with that. But then Lana's like, all right, I'm going with Clark. And it's just like, am I reading too deep into it? I'm probably reading too deep into it.
He changed the schedule on her because they were supposed to go to a museum that he planned out, and then he suddenly forgot about it, and it kind of pissed her off. It's like, okay, you're hanging out with your friends, I'm hanging out with mine. It's one of those times where women can be in a little bit of denial when they date guys, when they go out with guy friends, and and the boyfriend gets a little bit jealous that, like, really, you really think they're going to be your friend, like they're trying to get with you. I mean, it's one of those times where it's very difficult to see girls to have guy friends that are not trying to intentionally try to be with you. You know, if that makes any sense. Hey, you're hanging out with your friends, I'm hanging out with mine. Simple as that. And yes, they did had a moment in the limo of flirtation where she's kind of emotionally cheating on Whitney. I see where you're coming from. I'm kind of with you on that. She kind of did at the moment. If it hadn't been interrupted, it probably would have gone a little bit further.
Yeah, it's I might be reading too deep into it. That's what I do for everything. But Jacob, what do you think?
I think Lex is literally trying to literally do whatever it takes to break Whitney and Lana up. So much so where I would not should be shocked if Lex made a phone call and said, "Hey, make Whitney disappear." Oh, if his father made that call, Whitney would be dead, and they'd find his body and like cut up. But then it's like Lana would never recover from that.
Yeah, she would never recover. No.
You know, but like Whitney, but I think honestly, Lex just like, look, I care about Clark. Clark wants to be happy. I think that's his ultimate goal for Clark is like, look, you saved my life, so I am going to ultimately, while I'm investigating you, because like, you know, now he hires that reporter, is like, I'm going to investigate this while, and he's like,
since he's not being completely honest with him of what happened, he knows he's full of crap every time he's making up lame and lies and excuses. But I think that was his way to try to let him be open to him in order to and be honest with him. And he thought that maybe getting him and Lana together would probably win him over and get him his full trust. I think that's what his angle is, and helping out the parents with the farm too.
It's like, yeah, he's like, hey, look, I'm a nice guy. You see, I'm a nice guy.
I'm not like my father. I'm trying to move away from the Luther name.
But Ryan, what would you say if, like, for instance, if you were Clark in Clark's shoes, would you tell Lex your secret? Yes or no?
No.
I was expecting an answer. Okay.
I was expecting a yes on that, but I guess like, bam, you really don't trust Lex on this one.
I was
Well, it's
expecting
just-
at least them to say why. Explain.
I guess I'm going to say why. Like, if you give me a chance, I'm going to say why. Because I feel like Lex is really nice, but at the same time, you got Jonathan, my dad, in my ear saying, don't trust him. So I would be a little leery. That's where I'm coming from on that.
Okay, that's fair.
I would tell Lex. I would tell him, "Hey, look, dude, I'm an alien from another planet, and if guess what, if he ever messed with me, now, I wouldn't tell him my secret, but if ever I need to take care of him, I'd go Homelander on him and throw him off this planet."
But like I talked about in the first episode, death taxes, Superman hates Lex Luthor. It's like the destined to do this forever energy going on here. So you might just kickstart that whole thing off early if Clark tells Lex in Smallville time, when Clark is like 15, 16 and Lex is like 22, 23. You might as well get it started earlier than expected. I guess it's my logic from it.
I mean, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give too much away. I'm trying not to spoil it.
Do you like
Thank
the
you.
fact that they're best friend and they're buddies? Do you like the fact, Ryan, that they're best friends and buddies?
It's a nice relationship. I unfortunately have a feeling I know how it's going to end, and it's going to be real ugly. But for now, I am quite frankly enjoying it because Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum are two really good actors. They are real pros, and they are really just doing a great job with this material. So before we get on to Hourglass, Jacob, what would you rate the episode? Cool.
2 shields.
Oh,
Because this
that's
sucks.
real low.
And that's
That's
me.
a-
And the only reason I say 2 shields is because I like the Lex stuff. If it wasn't for that, I would give it 0 because that was how bad this episode is. I'm like, this just made me want to just shoot myself. That's how bad. I'm like, oh, this just sucks.
Well, alrighty then. But Matt, what's your rate?
Yeah, this was a very mediocre episode, very bad and very forgettable. Yeah, there's some good stuff that I liked about the Lex part, the Lex storyline with the whole helping out Clark and the family and all that stuff was great. But other than that, I didn't care about the villain. Very forgettable. Didn't like how they dumbed down Chloe's character. It was so stupid. And I'm just gonna give it a 3 out of 10 shields. That's just me being generous.
I'm gonna go 2.5, and the 2.5 go to Lex, John, and Martha only. Like the rest of the episode, you can just pretty much forget about it.
Trash
Definitely my least favorite of the show so far. But now we
You
jump
can
to
torch it. With
yes,
you can
indeed.
torch it.
Yes, indeed, Pumpkin Seed. Well, let's jump into from one of the least favorite to honestly one of my favorite episodes of this rewatch,
The best episode.
Hourglass. Lana befriends Harry, an elderly murderer living incognito in a nursing home. He falls into a meteor rock pond, as you do, and regains his youth. Harry starts killing descendants of the jurors who convicted him, one of whom was Jonathan Kent's father. So, yeah, I was
I'm
not
surprised he didn't
prepared
become
for.
Iceman.
No, he didn't.
I'm
I was not
surprised.
prepared for how dark this episode would get. But Matt, I'm gonna pass it off to you first. What did you think of this one?
Oh, dude, I completely agree. This is definitely the best out of the 3 episodes we've seen. The Hourglass was so great. We see Cassandra now, who's a blind lady who's living in the nursing home, and she can tell the future. That was one of the interesting Freak of the Week episode where it's not like technically the main villain, but we were starting to understand Clark's future and fearing for what he would become. Especially the one scene where he starts to see his own future, where he's surrounded by the grave and all the tombstones and all his loved ones are all gone. He's basically outliving everyone on Earth.
Superman
And
will
it
outlive
feared.
everyone.
Oh yeah, he outlives everyone. I think it's one of those times where, yeah, it shows that maybe he's fearing that he might be the last person on Earth, since now he has all the powers and he doesn't age as much. So yeah, that was one of the darkest scenes of the episode. And I thought her character and her backstory was so compelling because she lost her sight in the meteor shower, and the way she was telling her story was so emotionally compelling. And the best scene of the whole thing is when Cassandra's telling him that this is your destiny, to help people and save them from darkness and fear, because everything she sees for that future was all about darkness and despair and death. But until Clark came into the picture, the pain was gone. And that was like, oh, that it shows you that we already know, as fans, we know that Clark will become Superman and become the savior of the world.
Yeah, Jacob, what did you think?
I really like all right. So I know we're all going to talk about the Lex scene. I'm going to wait on that for a second because everyone on here loved the Lex scene. All right, but I'm going to talk about other things besides. I'm going to say the villain killing all who wronged him, his backstory about how he wanted to be a musician and he killed the music teacher and the jury that convicted him, and he goes and kills the jury members. I like that aspect, and he's killing their because now they've all passed on. So, but he's killing their grandchildren, and I like that aspect of it. I'm like, that to me is clever. It's a serial killer who's killing all the people that wronged. I'm like, that is clever. And I also like how the old lady does see Clark's showing that she'll outlive everyone. And also, I like the villain's death when he dies in the corn seeds tunnel where
the corn seed silo.
Yeah, and those were things I like. I did dislike two things. The only thing, it was just two little minor things. One was okay, so everyone is so the idea is okay. The guy disappears. Okay, so the old man has a lie that says, "Oh, some young guy kidnapped me. Was a fan, kidnapped me," and and then of course he does it again. I'm like, okay, if you're an orderly, wouldn't you say, okay, so shouldn't we watch this guy to make sure that we don't bring him outside, because this guy, if there is a young guy out there kidnapping this guy, we don't want him to get a second chance at the apple. So, and he does, and then this happens again allegedly. So I'm like, what, does that make any sense really? It's almost like they let him go outside and then go back into the wheelchair. So wait, I'm just like, to me that made me laugh kind of. I had to joke. I'm like, no one cares about this guy. We're just like, where's the orderly? Ah, shit, he's gone again. We need to get better security, guys. Come on.
Yeah, they have no good security. And the actor who played the younger version of Harry, Eric Christian Olsen. Yeah, my first exposure to that actor was I first saw him in Dumb and Dumber. That was the one movie that I first saw him in. But then when I watched the first season of Smallville and I saw him guest starring in, wow, holy crap, I did not know he was in the show. But I thought he played it out very well with the younger version of Harry. I mean, we see him now. He can become young. Now he can finish what he started by killing off the descendants who convicted him from the jury. And it was because he couldn't do it at the time because he was serving life in prison. And until he became an old age, they threw him in a nursing home to die. And I thought that his backstory was so good and very dark. And you get where he's coming from, even though he was just very misguided and not all right in the head, and he's a psychopath.
Also, he's not very discreet either. Literally, he just goes and kills people in public, and I'm like, that's how he gets caught the first time. And it's just like he's like, this is the third. He's been caught. You find out he was caught because got caught killing his music teacher because he didn't get the scholarship. And then the second time he got caught was because he tried to kill the waitress at closing time. And then
at
the third
closing time, when he's the last one in the building with piano wire, my brother in Christ, you need a more discreet way of doing your business.
The cable guy aspect was a smarter idea.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, that was a smart one.
He got clever the first time, but then he got stupid the second time.
Yeah, he got stupid the second time, becoming the gas man, whatever the hell he was. He's like, hell yeah, we got a gas problem. We didn't smell any gas.
You should have said I was the cable guy.
Wouldn't that gas company have a directory of being all right, this guy, this Joe, this Jane, I'm sorry, who? Wouldn't they have a directory or something to be what
about a meter reader? I'm here to read your meter.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird flex, but yeah, Eric Christian Olsen, I thought, did a pretty good job here. I like Jackie Burroughs as Cassandra Carver. I thought she was very good.
Oh yeah, she was great.
Yeah, I completely agree.
She's in one of my favorite Christmas movies too.
Really? Like, I don't even know what else she had been in.
She's only in like 2 or 3 scenes in that movie, but she's in my favorite Danny DeVito Christmas movie, Deck the Halls.
Oh yeah,
she's at the very beginning where the Matthew Broderick gives her glasses, and she goes, "I look hot." Just like,
oh my god!
I think she gets hit with a snowball later on in the movie. Matthew Broderick does a snowball at Danny DeVito, he ducks, and she gets hit in the face and falls down.
Right.
She was also in The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken.
Is she
Oh
alive
yeah,
still?
I mean, I still have not seen the Dead Zone. I still
Is
want
she
to check that
alive or did
movie
she
out.
pass away? I imagine
Yeah, yeah,
she's
she
not.
passed away in 2010, as I remember, if I recall from what I've heard that yeah, she did pass away in 2010. She was in her 70s. I believe she was in her early 70s when she passed. So she
Wow.
might have been, she was supposed to be in her 60s, but she don't look like she was in her 60s when we watched that episode. She looked a lot much older than that.
Yeah. Which you know what I do think that she really was good in the episode, and you believe that she's a psychic that she can just touch you and feel. Like I like how she touches Pete and she says that he's gonna be walking home today because his car keys are in the
Oh
car.
yeah, when Pete Ross forgot his keys and he left his keys in the car and he had to walk home. That scene was very clever.
This retirement home must be in a bad neighborhood. Do you don't have any security? The old men are getting stole. You got like your car getting stolen. I mean, really, what is this? Is this like Smallville? Is this like small in a bad neighborhood or something? This is
And also, yeah, that they and the police believe that the younger dude just kidnapped Harry and put him in there and cuffed him and in the hospital bed. I'm like, what? How does that make any sense? Like you just a few minutes ago that he was just in the hospital bed as a younger Harry, and then he
how did he get
transforms
the old
back.
man in? Did he
Like, how did
climb
he
through
get him
the?
in? How did he carry him in the hospital without being watched, without even being seen by the cops? Like it
Yeah,
because they were
he
keeping him
hid him in
from
the car.
observation. The
Yeah.
cops would stand right by the door.
Freaking security cameras. What are those?
Yeah, what
Well,
are the
this was
security cameras
2001.
for, dude? They don't care.
I mean,
The
look, I will say this though. I will say this. Despite there are some great moments, especially when he's at first looking, just kind of get something to drink, and he looking at the board, and you don't know what all this stuff on the board says. He goes, do young people still drink coffee? That's the whole thing.
Oh no,
Coffee?
he was like, how much is coffee? Like with beans, if that's what he
Yeah.
said with bean.
He's like mocha this, frappuccino this. It's like what?
It's like people drink that stuff. It's like you sound like my grandpa. Well, because he literally is.
I thought he
aha,
was
clue,
gonna hit on that
Sherlock.
chick. I thought he was gonna hit on her like, hey baby, you
Yeah,
ever
that's what I
drink?
thought too. Yeah, and how he manages to track those people down to the descendants of their own family. That he managed to find their address. How did he do that? That's the question. How did he manage to find them?
I'm sure
Because
Google was a thing in
he doesn't know how to, he's
2001,
an old
but
man who doesn't
No,
know how to
not
use a
Google.
computer. I
Phone
don't
book,
think
probably
he
right. The phone book.
maybe. Oh yeah, the
I mean,
phone
that's how
book. That would
Arnold
oh
killed
yeah,
people in
phone book. I did
Terminator.
not think about that.
Arnold
so
killed people in Terminator
basically,
that way.
basically the OG Terminator method. He finds every Sarah Connor's like, "Are you Sarah Connor?"
Sadakana. Yes.
I'm just like, that's what he was just like. I'm gonna go in the phone
Yeah,
book.
I keep
Imagine
forgetting that
nowadays you would have to use Google.
they don't use technology to find people if for people who have lived in the 80s and 90s when there's not enough computer to track people down, like you can go find their address through phone book. I didn't think about that.
I thought about that because I'm like, well, probably the phone book, really.
That would make a lot more sense.
Like, because I mean, honestly, nowadays it's much harder to find. Like, you would have a hard time unless you go on their Facebook or something.
Yeah, if you want to stalk their social media.
What is a Facebook?
What's a Facebook?
A book full of faces, Matt. A book full of faces.
A little bit of a joke from the quote from Cobra Kai, where Johnny didn't know what the hell Facebook was.
What the hell's Facebook?
What the hell's Facebook?
Well, probably for the best he didn't know, but that's another story for another time. But
Right.
did we forget anything, or can we just jump straight into the Lex stuff? Because this
Yeah.
is the
Stuff.
Oh
best
yeah, let's
part.
definitely jump into that one.
So the main thread throughout this episode is basically Lex going to Cassandra and like, yeah, what is my destiny? Basically, like, are you really a psychic or are you just playing? And it's kind of teased and teased and teased, and then literally in like the last 10 minutes goes to see her, touches his hand, and it gets into this amazing flashback or amazing vision in which we see Lex as President Luthor, which to my knowledge was a storyline in the Superman comics, and then he walks out into the Rose Garden, and then it turns into a whole thing of sunflowers. He touches one sunflower with a black gloved hand. He touches it, and all the sunflowers die. And then you see bones and skeletons everywhere. And then he looks up, and it's about to rain, but it rains down blood, and he is wearing a pure white suit. And then He snaps out of the vision. Cassandra dies, and he rushes out and he like clutches his chest like he's just had like a heart attack or something. I was not prepared for how dark this episode would get. I really was not prepared, and I think it's my favorite thing of this show so far. It's so dark, but it really goes to show that basically Lex Luthor was born on a bad choice road, and there is no exit ramp from that. It's scary stuff, but it's also just brilliant stuff. Who wants to go first?
I will say that oh my god, it's that I like that scene so much where it's just like, I keep thinking like there was something that I was like thinking like, wait a minute, didn't this happen? And I'm like, oh wait, that's later on. I'm like, no. There's something that scene is a great scene. We might see later on in a couple seasons from now an extended version of that scene, but it like literally this scene was so great to see Lex Luthor like show how he is like, that without Superman, without people, like he will destroy this world because he is Superman's greatest enemy. He is the world, like Superman is the Man of Steel. Lex Luthor wanted to be the Man of Tomorrow. He won't be, since Superman's the Man of Tomorrow. He will be. They said, well, if I can't be the city, the world cannot love me, then I will just take the world away from me. I will kill every single man, woman, and child on this planet because that is that will make me the happiest, is just bringing misery to others.
It kind of reminded me of when Zod has Superman in Man of Steel have that vision, and then soon Superman slowly descend into the whole like sea of skulls and bones. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Obviously not to the budget of what that movie was, but eerily very similar. And I don't know if I'm too out of bounds on that comparison, but that's what my mind flashed to. Matt, what did you think?
Yeah, the scene went into that dark direction, showing you who Lex will become, that man. Because when Cassandra saw Clark, she saw the light in him. She saw him as the savior of the world, while she saw Lex as the evil, the destroyer of worlds. And like a quote from Oppenheimer,
"Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Everything he touches, they perish." That was such a great scene. It's just more like a metaphor of a person who will become that person one day. That these two, with Superman and Lex Luthor, they were destined to become their greatest enemies. No matter what iteration it's from, they were destined to become enemies. Even if they started off become friends, but in the end, they will have a destiny on different sides. And it was one of the good scenes that before that Cassandra sees the vision, he says, "I don't want to do good things. I want to do great things." And that sounded a little bit scary about the villain who thinks they're right and they think that they're the hero of the story. And that was such a great scene with Michael Rosenbaum delivering that line. And at first he did not want to know his future. Like, my future's all planned out. I don't let destiny decide for me. I can choose my own destiny.
Whenever a hero thinks that they're the hero of the story, when they're actually the villain of the story. And so heroes, I think, every hero, every villain is the hero in their own head. And which I agree with that. I agree with you, Matt, on that. And like, see that, because Superman is destined to become the greatest superhero of all time. And while Lex Luthor is supposed to become one of the greatest villains of all time, or as he likes to say, the greatest criminal master. I always see it like, I don't mean to get biblical. It's like she saw like basically the savior, which Jesus, Superman, and then she saw like the destroyer of worlds, which is Lex Luthor, the devil in a way. And so basically she says she see good and evil on both sides. And I like that she saw that. She had to see, oh my God, you're going to be the greatest hero of all time. Well, this Lex Luthor is going to be is going to bring this world to its knees. And that's why, and it's like, and I like that. It's like, this is the rise of a villain's origin story. And this is the rise of a hero. And I like that aspect of it. I like that we are seeing two sides of this coin.
Yeah, two sides of the coin, because this is like, even though because Smallville's revolving around Clark Kent, but it also revolves around two characters. The Clark Kent going on the hero's journey, and while Lex Luthor's going on the villain's journey. Who, like, that they did it so well and make it more believable that that Lex Luthor has a case to make, that he's just not totally mustache obvious villain. He has a purpose and he has his reasons, and they humanize the character of Lex Luthor.
And he does dark things. Like he has. Like I liked whenever he was like that reporter in episode 4. He literally took his life away with a phone call. And so basically it's like, yes, Lex, it's not like, oh, I can't see Lex Luthor being an evil villain. No, I could see him because he's already willing to like ruin somebody's life with a phone call. Imagine what he would do if he was the commander in chief of the country.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum is at this point the definitive Lex Luthor. I know I'm saying the water is wet at this point, but I don't care. Let's just set it in stone. All due respect to Gene Hackman, but Michael Rosenbaum is Lex Luthor. He doesn't need Miss Tessmacher. He doesn't need the whole plan to blow up like California or whatever his plan was. And
he doesn't need Otisburg. Otisburg.
Doesn't need Mercy Graves. Which was his assistant in Superman the animated series and a lot of the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Matt, I wanted to circle back to what you said. The show is about Clark, but it's also about Lex. I think there's a deliberate reason why they named the show Smallville and not just Superman, because it's not just about the man who will be Superman. It's about the town and the people who live in this town, in this snapshot of like these few years. And I haven't looked too deep into it, but from what I understand, like we're going to leave Smallville, the town, eventually and get into Metropolis. I haven't looked too deep. I haven't spoiled it for myself, but I feel like we're going to leave Smallville, like the town itself, and I'm going to hate that day when it comes because I like this town already.
Well, you got like 9 more seasons left for the show.
All right,
But
so I got plenty of time.
But it is an incredible journey, just surrounded by these two greatest characters in the history of comic books. And they do it so well, and I love it, and I really believe it.
Yeah, and I also love that at this movie theater they play stuff like The Lost Boys and Them, a movie about giant killer ants.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed that when Clark was getting those random flashes again for his X-ray vision, you see the poster of The Lost Boys. I keep forgetting that The Lost Boys was had an Easter egg in that episode. I keep forgetting that was there.
Yeah.
You know why that poster was there? Because
why?
So that was an X-ray, right? X-ray.
Yeah, that was an X-ray episode.
Yeah, you know why? Because Tina can never grow old and never die because basically she's a shapeshifter. Message to Lost Boys is basically, Lana. Basically, it has to do with the episode itself, the poster, where it's like because Tina wants to be like sisters with Lana, and she's it's something. It was what was it? It was like on talk they're talking about the analogy to it. Whereas about Lost Boys is like Lost Boys about the plot is they move to a town and it's about vampires. They can never grow old, never die. And so the poster relates to like this episode where it's like a girl who can be anybody she wants to be. And basically, like she can just blends in as a normal person, but then, really she can just take whoever form they want, take away people, almost like Lost Boys in a way where it's like these punks that are just like monsters,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that honestly is pretty clever if that's the direction they did go. But I feel like we can put a button on this episode unless there's something you all want to bring up. Let's go to the rankings, or our ratings, I should say. Jacob, what's your score?
I am gonna say, you know what, people, I don't care. I'm saying it's a 10 out of 10 Shield. I love this episode. I would absolutely watch this again. This was my favorite episode.
Matt, I have a feeling I know what your score is.
Yeah, I really did love this episode. I think it was like the darkest episode we've seen in this first season, and showing us a little bit of a further direction to our two main characters with Lex Luthor and Clark. And yeah, the main even the villain of the week episode was actually pretty good. He was not just some throwaway like freak of the week episode. The Cassandra character, seeing the future, I thought her story was great. I thought she played it very well into Clark's character arc. Yeah, I'm gonna probably give this thing a 9 out of 10 Shield. It's definitely rewatchable.
You know what? I'm going to echo Jacob. I'm going to go 10 out of 10. I love this episode to pieces. It's tied with it's like in the like the pilot and this are my two favorite episodes so far. Like I thought these episodes were so good, and I'm so deep invested into this show already, and we're like not even halfway into the first season, but I'm already hooked. So it just really,
It's
really
22
solid.
episodes apiece, or 23. I think this episode season's 23.
I think it might have been 21 episode for this season. Maybe I could be wrong. I probably have to fact check it of how many episodes there are left.
I'm checking. It is 21.
I knew it. I knew it had to be 21. So yeah, it's gonna come by quick because we're gonna be covering 3 episodes each week.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the end of Small Talk episode 2. I want to thank you, Jacob, and you, Matt, for joining me. As always, I have so much fun recording these. I'm looking forward to having this podcast be a part of this channel's repertoire going forward in the long term. And I'm so grateful to have you both on. Jacob, it's always fun to have you on. It's always a privilege. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me at 3D Movie Cinema. Friday, I got Haunted Mansion. I'm doing, not the Eddie Murphy one, but the new one that came out. I'm reviewing that Friday, and then every Wednesday I have game reviews, and then on Friday movie reviews. So I got that coming up tomorrow as a Haunted Mansion review, and that's it. And I'm also collabing with you on next Friday. Also, I'm doing with Jacob Martin. We're doing our annual Scream movie review for Scream 6. So that's what we're doing next Friday.
Yeah, and Jacob's channel is linked in the description. Matt, your link tree will be in the description as well. Over on your channel, I believe your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem review is now up.
Yeah, it's officially now live on my YouTube channel. Go and check that out, and go and subscribe to my channel to help me boost the numbers. I would definitely appreciate the support. I'm going to keep continuing to review more movies on my YouTube channel. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I'm so grateful to be part of the show and be part of the co-host to talk about one of my all-time favorite shows for Smallville, and geeking out, shooting the shit, have a great laugh, and having fun with it. I'm so grateful for it, dude.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. But yeah, all of their links in the description. Go give them a follow. And as for this channel, the road to Saw 10 continues with my review of Saw 2, or my re-review. I've already covered it for another series, but this is going to be a re-review of Saw 2. I've already rewatched it, and the video will be live on Friday. It's going to be...
Saw will be Friday. Saw 2 will be next Friday.
Correct. But yeah, Saw 2 is, honestly, I like it just as much as the first Saw. So my thoughts on that will be going as well. And then that road will be continuing all the way up to Saw X coming out on September 29th. But as for this video, if you did leave a like, if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell to allow notifications. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a positive rating there if you like the show. For Matt Wyatt, for Jacob Collins, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Y'all have a good time.